going to go ahead and get a little bit of audio and video from the Osmo. This is 4K 60 frames a second, so it should be very smooth. There we go. There's kind of a gorge here. As you can see, this used to be where they had the water come through, and they have since done away with that because they regraded everything. It's probably 25 feet. I gotta be careful because there's some wash here and I don't want to end up down there. Going through the woods. This is off toward the back of our property. It's kind of interesting because if you go along the property, you can see where in the past there was wire where they had a fence running along here, I guess, to keep the cattle and stuff. But look, it has actually, that's how long it's been there. It has grown into the tree. So this has probably been there. That tree is probably 40 years old, so it's probably been there at least that time. This is a massive cypress tree. It is absolutely gorgeous. Got a little bit of lens flare there, probably. Maybe not. Yeah, there it is at the bottom. But it's a huge cypress tree. Hold on. Did a smell check. It's actually a cedar tree. Massive oaks. Just kind of run through here. Good bit of cleanup is needed through here. Just to get old stuff that people left behind. Again, there's the gorge. You can see where the water went through. It's gorgeous trees out here. And so our property line actually goes across the gorge into the other side over there, probably 50, 60 feet. This is back. So this would kind of be the side of the property line. Really. Again, the gorge goes all the way from about the middle of the property and then ends back toward the rear. Let's see if I can get through here. Faithful tractor. I know it looks like crap, but that little beast right there, that was one of the greatest things ever gifted to me, I think. That was my buddy Richard. He literally gave me a tractor. Like, who does that? Nobody does that. That dude's pretty awesome. woods. The gorge is on the opposite side of where all these trees are, obviously. You can get through here. Take a look. Goes down there a pretty good ways. Back out. Got hung up on a branch there. So in total, not a ton of land. It's it's 10 acres exactly. And it's rectangular for the most part. It's not crazy odd shape. But when we first bought the property almost 10 years ago, it had some little cutouts here. So interesting thing about this place is this was all Indian land, right? Or Indian territory. Out here there was Cherokee and Choctaw Indian, because this is northern Mississippi. And of course out here, if you dig up in this ground, and because there was water, so you know, wherever there's water, typically you'll find settlements. But because of where it's located near the water, you can actually find a ton of flints and arrowheads and all kinds of stuff out here. I have a buddy of mine, Tim, who is constantly telling me, have you gone out and looked for arrowheads? Have you gone out and looked for arrowheads? He has found a ton, and he says there are tons of arrowheads back in this area. And this was obviously, I believe what was here wasn't Cherokee, I believe it was Choctaw Indians, which were probably, between Cherokee and Choctaw, they were probably the most prominent. There are others, obviously, but I think those may have been the most prominent in the area. There are, in a couple cities near here, there are some Indian mounds and things like that, but this back here, so this is kind of getting toward the rear. You see how the gorge, or the creek really is what that amounts to. That creek really kind of is not as aggressive. I mean, I say it's not as aggressive. If you look over there, it's still pretty crazy. It's kind of deep there in that area, but let's see. There, that's a better picture. It is still kind of steep, don't get me wrong. But when you start looking this way, it does start. Guys, I'm trying to get this so where it's zoomed out. Again, learning all these tools. But there you go. It really starts to calm down. So right there, it's like 15 feet. And of course, wherever. Ooh, I just stepped in a hole and almost went down. But you can see there's obviously trees have fallen, and I mean that's kind of the norm we have had. And I just stepped in a massive hole, and you probably didn't realize because this thing's on a gimbal, but literally almost lost a knee. But anyway, there's tons, like we've had some bad storms out here and tornadoes and crap like right across the street, and a couple years ago we had several tornadoes that touched down right across the street here, and luckily no loss of life, but it destroyed a bunch of stuff. And so you can see there's a bunch of downed trees. We occasionally get some crazy weather out here, and it's almost like it's getting worse. The weather's, I mean, right now it's middle of January almost, and it's like 55 degrees outside. The other day it was 72, and it was in January, so mild winter to say the least. I believe the lows are going to drop down to 38s, and then obviously it's going to get colder. But so far it's been an awesome winter. I love it. It hasn't been freezing cold temperatures or nothing like that. So, but as you can see, there's some massive trees here. That's a huge tree. That tree's probably 40 feet tall, and it's just laying in this gorge. And so now you can really kind of get an idea. I can almost walk inside the creek now. There's nothing really left of it, but there's another massive tree. So there's a couple of those down here that have kind of fallen, but this area back here is absolutely awesome. It's so quiet, so peaceful back here. And I believe I told my wife about building a cabin out here, and she kind of shot it down. And she says, I don't want a cabin, I want a tree house. So I think we're building a tree house out here. She said she doesn't want anything huge, just something small, which I think would be awesome. I do have a tiny bit of fear that if a tree falls, it could land on the tree house, but I don't know. I actually think, no, this is still ours. You'll notice here, this is going to be pretty interesting for all of you that aren't hunters or anything. I'm not a hunter, so please don't take it as I am. But you will see there's a random pipe, and it is strapped to a tree and painted in camo. Can anyone guess what that pipe actually is for? If you guessed deer feeder, you're probably from the south. But yes, friends, it is a deer feeder. You put your feed here and it goes down the tube, and the deer stick their mouths in there and they eat feed. Corn, most likely. So we are still on our own property, so that is good.